Waffen pilot with Penny Bradley, and today my guest is Miesha Johnston, and she sent me a bio that I'm actually going to read. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Miesha Johnston is a certified hypnotherapist, and she specializes in trauma release hypnosis and ET and past life regressions. By the way, she's good at that, guys. Miesha also offers multidimensional galactic light language activation healing sessions to assist others to find out who their galactic family of origin is and discover their own missions. She's good at that too. She facilitates experiencer support groups each month, 3 times a week. Generational experiencer, having her first experience at age 3. She has had numerous contacts and abductions and has been involved with at least 3 different alien types. Most extraordinarily, she was born into an MK Ultra family, and Miesha has had 2 missing times. Each one was 8 months to a year. As an adult, due to being taken and used in the Monarch Project. She is an MK Ultra survivor and has had attempts on her life. In 1990, Miesha founded the Star Family Contactee Group. These groups are for people who are experiencers, men, women who are contactee, experiencer, abducted by ETs, and MELABs. She started the first teen and children's and parents groups in the United States in 1992. Miesha was director of UFO Contact Center International, which is UFOCCI, and Celestial Contacts of Nevada, and was a working group member of Stephen Greer's CSETI in the 1990s. Miesha has been interviewed on many shows, including Art Bell's Dreamland, and has spoken at UFO conventions throughout Western states. She's going to be at one next month, and I'm going to be there too. It's in Vegas.
5D event.
Huh?
5devent.com.
Yes, 5devents.com. She has a weekly radio show every Saturday, Starseed Awakening, at http://kcorradio.com. It's on just before my show. She has written 3 books and 2 oracle decks. They Weren't Butterflies, Covert Abductions, and Galactic Genealogy Planetary Origins. They're available on her website and on Amazon.com. She is owner-operator of Vector 5 UFO Tours of Las Vegas and has been leading CE5 type tours in Las Vegas, Hawaii, and California for 5 years with military-grade Generation 3 night vision goggles and high-powered lasers. She has 3 links, and we'll add them on the YouTube. One is the starseedawakening.org, which is her website. The second one is the Facebook group Starseed Awakening, and the third one is the website ufonightwatch.com. Now, for my part, I was in Miesha's group that met once a week then in 2015, and I was a problem child. And I was blowing up people's circuit breakers in their houses. And I left for a while because I figured that was the polite thing to do if you're so upset you're costing people money. So, but she and I have, huh?
Only two people. No big. It was no big.
Oh, okay. But yeah, she and I have remained friends, and I've vacationed where I stayed at her house, and so we actually really know each other. So I'm honored that she's here on my show, and I think we're supposed to talk about the altars and the missing time periods and how she reconstructed what happened during those times. So, Miesha?
Well, born into an MKUltra family, and it doesn't make me popular with my family, but I know a different side of my father, a mind control part of my father. My father was in Rosicrucians and in the Black Magic part of it. On the other side, there was Masons, at 33rd degree Masons on my mother's side. So my very long story about that, but basically, he was my handler. I'm just, I accidentally posted this on my own site. I usually don't because I don't want my family to see, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, so my father was, I said, a dabbled and did black magic, and he was also a hypnotist. He was also a show magician, and he would go on the show. He took 3 of the siblings on this show with him to entertain the masses and such. He would do mind reading there. He was illusionist, so he did things that black magic has a way of helping, shall we say. And yes, and the reason he did is because he was born into a Rosicrucian family. He was born into a dark family. My grandmother was a very dark person. I would go and when at 3 years old, when the programming started, shall we say, that not really the programming, the torture started. It my father was part of it because he's mind controlled too. So as a mind controlled person, and it's generational, they have a job, shall we say, to torture so that I want to say it exactly the right way. So as I always forget the terminology when I'm explaining it. So the psyche splinters. So when the soul splinters, then they can program. But first there has to be extreme torture in order to do that. So my father started me in it. And in one particular time when I remembered back into that experience, I was under horrific torture of shall we say, from my father. And he said, you have to learn how to leave. You have to learn how to leave. Much more pain will you endure in your life if you don't learn how to leave. And I didn't understand what he meant, but what he was meaning was for me to step out, to splinter, and he wanted me to do that. I think that was his only way that he could help me, though he was in the mind control himself. But I continued on throughout my life. I was passed over to another part of it, which was my grandmother, and my grandmother lived on Asylum Lane, which was about 2 minutes from the sane asylum, and that's where it got its name. And that particular sane asylum was a place where they did a lot of, shall we say, trafficking and programming, torture and programming. And so from age 3 on, I would go and visit with grandma. And while my father would be out doing the tours, I would go to grandma's and visit grandma, though I don't remember really visiting grandma. I never did. I knew I was supposed to, but I never remembered anything. Well, that's because I never made it to grandma. I did make it to Grandma. Then Grandma dropped me off at the Saint Asylum. So that's where they did
Hmm.
most of the desensitization, with the screens and the head helmet type things to have me see these horrific, horrible things, of killing, of death, of rape, of murder, of all kinds of things coming at me, um, like a holographic that we shouldn't have had back then. But indeed,
Yeah.
that's the
It,
kind of tool they
that's
used.
something that I've had people say, "Are you sure this wasn't holographic technology?" But they didn't have holographic technology at that level at that time. Um, I was born in 55, and I know you're a little older than I am, so this technology was not available until the 1980s, at least not on Earth. So unless
Oh
they were
God,
using unless they were using a Black Ops thing from off world, it wasn't
well,
there.
more than likely that's what it was, because they would put this helmet on us, and all I can remember is we had to look at all these images, and it was if they were coming at us. It felt like they were coming at us. The only way I can explain it is I picked up I don't remember what they call it, ocular or something like that. My son has this new a three is virtual reality, and I put it on and I went, oh my God, this is exactly the kind of thing. So I'm thinking,
Yeah,
okay, you add, that was in the 1952, 53, 54, somewhere around there.
yeah,
That that technology had to be extraterrestrial technology, had to be back into it, to be given to him that way. And that's understandable because of the things that happen in my life that go along with extraterrestrials as well. But so anyway, many lots of things going on there. At 9 years old, I was put into service, and service was for service. I remember the deacons of the church, and I remember the rituals, and I remember these kinds of things. I remember the businessmen with the beards that I hated. I had a phobia from then on, for um, old men, and
mm,
so yeah. So my in my I was from a family of 10, and within five of them died of different
wow,
very unusual things. With before they were even one died at 6. The rest of them all died before they were even 2 years old. Still while they were infants. Um, the very strange thing about it is I do believe that some of them were killed, and I think some may even been taken. I'm not sure, but I don't know about the taken, but I feel they killed it because they died of strange things like carbon monoxide poisoning, pneumonia, tuberculosis, which wasn't strange because my other sister died, got it, but didn't die. And then another hit on the back of the head by a kid, supposedly it's a neighbor with a high heel. Anyways, it's very strange. And then one was
wow.
stillborn. But when my father was dying on his dying and his in the hospital, of horrific kinds of brain cancer and other cancers, which is that's that taken and put into your body. When you get a cancer like that, it's all of the horrific things that you've done in your life karmically coming back into you that you're pulling in. That's why so many people, I think, die of these horrific kinds of deaths that are in these done these things. But anyway, so my father was dying, and he was in and out of a coma, and he came back and temporarily, right after my mother left. She'd been with him all the time. She went to go eat, change some clothes and get some dinner. And he came out of his semi coma that they was in and out of coma, and he came out of it, and he took my hand. He said, "I'm so sorry I did what I did to you. I had you. Your mother couldn't have handled losing any more children, and at least we got to raise you and be with you. So I had to give you up. I had to give it to them." And then he went back and never woke back up. So that started my journey then, from that was when I was, uh, let me see, 30 years old, 40
Wow.
years old, something like that.
To go that long and not have any clue what was going on except that your family was weird.
Yeah, yeah, it's very weird. I had an uncle, my dad's uncle, was a cult leader, a very well-known cult leader called Krishna Venta, and he was in this, I think it's the Sacramento, San Fernando, whatever, the California hills. And in fact, anybody can look him up. He's pink of ink. He's a half brother, and from my dad's, and I believe that this cult is an absolute CIA setup because in this, all of the it went on for several years. They were not bothered by anybody. They um, people gave them their life belongings and everything to join it, and it was totally a cult. It was like a cult, and in fact, Manson. Jamie, what's his name? Manson. Where is it?
Charlie
Oh my gosh.
Manson?
Yeah, yeah. Charlie Manson um, studied him and became. That's where he got his idea to be a cult leader.
Wow.
But Manson was also part of the CIA cult program too. There is
Mm-hmm.
no doubt about it. So yeah, so that's a lot of things, and you can also look that up as well. But anyway, so that was good old uncle, and I only remember negative things about him. I was terrified of him, and more than likely, he was probably one of my um, um, the old man that I was scared of. I'm not sure, but at any rate, so that's the family. It is a pretty insane family. It's a very insane things that happened. My brother and my sister, who were forced to be on the road with this magic show and illusions and mind reading show, ended up running away at 13 and 17 years old. The boy, 13, decided he'd rather live on the railroad than to stay with my father one more minute. And my sister ran away before she graduated school. So, they,
Wow.
um, so yeah. So, all right. So fast forwarding now. You want me to go to the missing time? Um, all right.
Yeah, if you want to
There
cover the
have
missing time, you don't have. We have an hour and a half left. You don't have to go through it fast. If it's too painful, you can skip over.
Oh, it's okay, and I do talk fast when I'm. It's like I try to speed through it. I know I do it
Yeah,
really fast.
I understand that. I used to do that the first few interviews I did, and that was one of the feedbacks I got was slow down so people can absorb it.
Yeah, yeah, I
So,
know. Yeah, it's a nervous thing when I'm talking about the childhood stuff because I'll tell you the truth. I haven't connected all of the dots still, and I've had something like 18 regressions. But
wow.
it's a pretty deep thing. The first, I got to say, the first 8 regressions until I met Neora Isley, for instance, and um, Barbara Lamb. Um, the first 6 to 8 ones were done by therapists trying to find it. I was trying to find some answers. Therapists who have no knowledge about MK Ultra or any of that, and
Oh,
so
they're
they were just
dangerous.
yeah, they were not help at all. In fact, it was hindrance, and of course, that's when they wanted, several times on it to say, "Well, here you need to take this drug or this drug because you're, they never actually told me I was because I don't think at that point it was a diagnosis, but they did tell me that I had um, uh, MIB, that I was an MIB, which now is DID.
Okay.
Multiple personalities, MPB. Yeah, but now it's dissociative disorder. And they thought it went back from my father, which part of it was, but the rest of it was what horrifically things, happened at the asylum. And the asylum was the place where all slowed down. So the asylum, they would put us in little tiny rooms, and um, now they put people in cages. So I had it really much better than them. I was in like the first round of MK Ultra, so everything was a trial basis, I think, back there. So the goggle things were a trial basis and how everything, and we were like the guinea pigs to try the things now that they do psychotronically, actually. But
Yeah.
at any rate, I would be put in a room and without food or water. And if we asked for food, and it was dark too, and there's a little mat on the floor, a little toilet, and they'd say, they'd shove this just something like food in. And then if I get whiny or crying because I was a kid, I was like 5 or 6 years old, then the punishments would start. So you learn how to be quiet and invisible. That's the very most important thing, is to be invisible and not make waves. But then, if you did, then you had the psychotronic, not psychotronic, you had electric shock. Of course, that was a normal thing because drugs, electric shock, and hypnosis are the three things they use to start programming people in the MK Ultra program, along with uh, all different types of torture that they use. Torture to make you feel like you can't make friends, because if you do, they're going to be um, executed in front of you, or like ritual abuse, basically, is what they do in front. Other things about the ritual abuse, and you having to be forced to do things that you would never in a million years do. But it became a kind of thing where it's like the Stockholm syndrome. You, for everything that happened, you depended on them for survival, and you knew that you depended on them for survival. So
Hmm.
you had to do what you had to do, and if that means you have to do something to another human being, you have to do it. And the same thing with the being into service at 9 years old means they started programming me sexually at 9 years old, and that's when the trafficking would happen and things like that. So
Yeah,
that's why
I was
I'm thrilled
taken when
to
I was 4, so I do understand what you're talking about, and it's not easy, and it's not easy to talk about it. So
no, it's not
um,
easy to talk about. Yeah,
I'm
it start rolling in your head. Yeah, and then so it's not. But it is important because to know that this is something that has been going on for 65 years, for
yeah.
a long time it's been going on. And so um, the whole thing about the rituals and all of that, that's all very, it's been going on for a long time. So I
Hmm.
was going to go ahead and go into, because I have a big blank spot. I don't remember anything from about 9 years old to about 16. I don't remember my graduation. I don't remember, and I did graduate. I understand. Anyway, one of my alters graduated because by then they were already to splinter the and fragment me so that I don't remember anything about my life. Family members will like, and this is something people need to know, that so that they can understand, if you don't remember your life as a child, there's some trauma there. There's definitely, that's
Yeah.
why I started the field of hypnosis, to help people with trauma. And but there's trauma there. If you only remember, like if your family's sitting around and they say, look at these pictures, you remember so and so, and you're going, not a clue. What the hell are you talking about? I don't know. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But my picture's there, but I wasn't there. I know I wasn't there. So
Yeah.
I had memories of it. They told me about things that happened to me I have no clue about, none whatsoever. And so anytime with a family gathering, I just felt like I was this person. Now maybe I wasn't walking, who knows? I don't know, maybe I was walking. I've never figured that out if I was, and that could be why I don't remember the others, but I think it's more the fact that I had different alters by then.
Well,
And the
most of
fact
the actual walk-ins that I know, they have the memories of the body. They just don't feel like it happened to them. So to have a total blank is more consistent with alters, which means trauma.
okay, well, that helps me. Thank you. I did not know that. I hadn't looked into walk-ins and stuff. But so
Well, because of the way that I was activated, that was the first obvious thing that came into my mind was, am I a walk-in? Because suddenly my world was different, and that's consistent with what people describe as the walk-in experience, where mine was actually, I was activated by an agent using code words, which it took me a while to figure out exactly what had happened. In your case, my experience is helping you rule out things that it took me years to figure out. You know, I had these memories I was dealing with, and even when I was in your group, I hadn't figured them out to a point to know what was going on. You remember how confused I was.
I remember that. Yeah, dude, I do remember. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's very, very confusing to piece the puzzle together, because that's what it is. It's a crazy puzzle to try to piece your life together. And you know, it's a great point that you made, that what you said today is helping you. Well, that's the great thing. That's why you know, in 1990 I started support groups for people, so that people could talk to each other, and boy, does it help. It really helps. I get help every day in my group. You know, so I think it's so important that people talk and share, and do not isolate, and do not think you're alone. So that's, I don't like interviews, but I go to on interviews because I like to be able to help people, and if it's going to help them to understand what's going on with them. You know, it's not fun to talk about at all. Um, so especially when you've got so many still missing pieces, and I I haven't gotten that agent to come and give me the memories, which I'd really like to have. I really like to have once and for all. So because I've already gone through all of the work and the trauma and the integration of the main altars. There might be others floaters out there, but the main altars have been integrated.
Well, the agent was killed when I went public. Yes.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Oh.
So it was like, I went public and I got a message from the CIA saying that if you continue this, we're going to kill so-and-so and so-and-so, and he was on the list. And I contacted him and I said, this is the message I was given, and he said, I'm a big boy, I can take care of myself, you do what you need to do. And 2 months later, he was dead.
Wow.
So,
oh, and that was quite a few years ago, right?
That was in 2016.
Oh, 2016. Yeah, well, that wasn't. But it seems that nowadays they've just got their hands busy. They're very, very busy themselves with surviving themselves, that they don't seem to be on the attack like they were even in, 2016 probably. But, well, maybe I don't want to know that. Because I don't want to put anybody maybe I don't want to know. I'll just find out my own slow snail pace. But yeah, and since then I've had so many different memories of things that happened to me in the programming that didn't quite fit in. So I've had memories now come back about the secret space. I don't really go into that too much because I don't have the full memory yet, but I do know and remember being uh, on a ship of some kind of a ship. It felt like a clangy ship that made a lot of noise when you walked on it. When I woke up, actually, being with a bunch of group of kids, 11 and 12, being taken on board the ship, and I guess it was a ship. But anyway, being taken on board, and then we slept in these little cot things that were like little hanging net things. It wasn't
Okay.
actually net material, but it was and we'd hang and we hang like
Like a
that.
hammock?
We like a hammock, yeah, like a hammock. And we just that was where we slept, and then during the day we would be trained at, and we'd be seeing these horrific looking pictures. Well, actually, and sometimes holographic stuff. But we first started being trained to be looking at these pictures of these aliens, and to know, so we know who's dangerous, who's not, kind of thing.
Yeah, I
And
remember
then,
that.
yeah, oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I haven't. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that.
That
Um,
yeah, I remember being taught you the list that you do not engage
yeah, right, right. And it was a
because
large amount out there looking at them.
yeah, that they were too dangerous to interact with and that they would usually kill us. And so do not engage. If you see one of these, go the other direction.
Right, exactly. And then another time, I remember being waking, I waking, not, didn't say wake up, in a dream, coming to two, because it seems like I would just come and I'd be out in the middle of this experience, and I'm running in a cave with, and I'm probably a teenager now, and I'm running with a cave in a cave with a bunch of other soldiers, and I have this that big heavy pack on my back, and it's hard for me to breathe. It's like the air is different there, and we're inside of a cave just running. And then that's all I remember. And another time I remember, I'm out with another large group of, and it's always kids. We're not adults, and we're out there, and I think we're kind of bait for the aliens, because the super soldiers are all around in secret places, and these big, tall, what would I call them? Okay, so in my experience, they kind of look like a mantis, a, a, an ant, and a spider. It's the best three things I can describe. And so, and they were much taller than us. I mean, when they came up to us, if you survived, they were just so much taller. They were probably 10, 12 feet tall. So that
Yeah.
was the only other experience. And then all of a sudden, I'm now from this age, now I'm to an adult, and I must be like 25, 30, something like that. And I am in a facility, and I know that it's uh, the upper people are German. I know that because I can hear that sometimes. And I am not controlling, but I am facilitating super soldiers and their training. And within this training, I remember have had several guys that were in the super soldier program when I was when I spoke at a super soldier, Lorraine Jensen super soldier summit. And I met them, and I immediately felt like, wow, you're like my kids. I don't know why I'm so close to you. But since then,
Yeah.
we've put it together and found out, like James, for instance, one of them, James Reed, and we found out that he was one of my super soldiers. Now, the interesting thing about the super soldier, I wasn't the whole trainer. I was the facilitator of the program, and other people were training. But I had the last word of how it should be done, and I wanted everyone to do teamwork, because the other classes that had come out before, the super soldiers didn't survive very long. They ended up dying out in the field, and then ones that would have to be pieced back together and come back, or things like that. So I adopted this teamwork. Let's do teamwork. Let's do team. work together as a team, not individual, work together as a team. So they did. And I think from that, from other times, generations, I think after that, they started the twin, what would you call it? The counterpart team, just two people. But this was groups of
Yeah.
teams that would actually work together. And so when they went out and did their work or fought their wars or did whatever they did, they came back and they had a. So the Germans said this was a good thing. They liked this because it was more product, more
More
financially,
productive.
more productive. That exactly, it was much more productive way than have to redo them all over again. So
Yeah,
that's
the Germans that I
yeah.
served with were very interested in productivity and efficiency, and they would modify what they were doing to make it more productive.
Mm.
This seemed
And
to
it
be their primary goal was efficiency.
was efficiency. Yeah. Okay. Well, that truly is what it was. Basically, they were. It was a very much more efficient way to, and it saved the money and time and all of that. Now, the other thing about that, there was one other thing I wanted to say. Well, maybe it'll come to me. Yeah, maybe it'll come to me. But oh, I know what it was. I have German and English descent. I found that out. French, German, and then English descent. I
Okay.
also have reptilian lives. Had a couple, three actually, three reptilian lives. So that may have been in my favor too, because I don't I don't know that was draconian. I don't, but I had reptilian. So I that may have been why I was given this fairly good job. However, I do remember along the way a whole lot of Monarch stuff. Now, I can't tell you if that Monarch stuff was out in space or on land. I think it may have been both, but what I remember mostly is on land, which is where I'm going to go to now. At,
Okay.
um, at 17 years old, I was back in my life, learning, trying to experience my life, I guess. And the only memory I have is I was at college, checking out about college. College hadn't started yet, but there was we could go in and do some um, talking to the professors and things like that, and see and talk to the coordinators to see if I could afford to go to college and things like that. So I was there with a group of people. I don't know that I don't even can even tell you who they were, but we were in the cafeteria and this man walked up to us and he said, "Hey, anybody here like to make some money? We have a really fun kind of way for you to make money." And I'm doing, well, okay, what is that? Well, it's a dream study that we do. So what we do is we hook you up to a dream. I hook you up, and then we have you go dream, and then we watch your dreams, and we just kind of watch and see what happens when with your body and your dreams and stuff. And you make, if I can't remember what it was, but what it would be in this day would be a few $1,000s, So I
Okay.
don't know what it was, probably 1,500 or something like that. So I said, okay. So I don't know if the other ones did it because I don't ever remember seeing them or who they were or anything. But then I am walking into a brownstone building right on the edge of the campus. And I walk in, there's people with lab coats. They hook me up, put me on a bed, hook me up. And that's the last thing I remember until 8 months later. I wake up on a bus and I going, I just woke up on the bus and I go, what the hell am I? And so I got into my purse and I got this ticket. And I looked at it and it had my first name, but not my last name. And I said, let me do somebody else's ticket. That's my name. Don't understand it. Well, as I ask myself these thoughts telepathically, I'm not talking to myself, but I ask myself these thoughts, and these little memories would pop into my head. Now, it was crazy because some of them would pop in and they'd make for making sense. So, and some of them would pop in that didn't make sense. So, the first one that popped in was that, oh, well, you were married to a Navy Marine corpsman. no, no, not. I had no idea it was Navy Marine Corps. You were married to a military guy who was going to college, and his parents came home and said that they wanted him to quit, get rid of you, and divorce, and they sent him to college. So that was, and I went, oh, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, and then it's a long ride from Seattle, Washington, is where I was to Idaho, Ocala, Idaho. And so I thought, oh my, what else? I can't. And then I got this vision of, oh, here's a big mansion kind of thing with big iron gates, and I'm on a bus, and I'm with other girls my age, and then some younger boys between 11, 14, 15 years old. And then I thought, oh, that's weird. But then this other thought comes in my head and says, oh, you cleaned mansions. And I went, oh, cleaned mansions. Okay. I don't remember what I did there because I don't remember anything about being there, but okay, I guess that's it. And then another thought comes in my head, the real thought, and it says, but it was nighttime. The mansion was lit up. There were limos outside and all around. And they drove the bus in the back and walked us up the stairs, and we were the party favors. So, and that was the term, party favors. So anyway, I'm trying all the way, trying to figure this out. And then I find out, that's all I have in memory. But in a regression, years later, I find out that during that time when they took us up to the back, and then my mind, everything missed. I was missing, the memory was missing after that. The girls, they've had us dress up in fine gowns, and the boys stayed where they were on the floor. We went down, and we were the entertained. We were supposed to entertain the rich ones. Now, people that were there at that particular event was Bob Hope, and other stars that I don't mention, but him I'll mention. There was military dignitary, foreign dignitary. There were all kinds of politicians and stuff like that, and it was just a big party. Now, the whole idea about masks and stuff is a true thing. They wear masks. They wear masks at certain events. Now, when we were out there at that party thing, it was all fine and dandy. But the people who went to the other event, which was after the party, those people wore masks, so you didn't know who they were. And if you saw the show Eyes Wide Shut, that's exactly the same kinds of things that happen. There's a ritual ceremony. We're given as the whatever, we're given as the sacrifice, basically, and they're in masks, and we are, you know, but it's not like that. It's in a dark area, and everybody's in hoods and masks, and we are, the naked ritual. And it's not in that show. It says it's prostitutes, not prostitutes. It's kidnapped kids. The boys, on the other hand, were kept up in the third or fourth level, and they were the ones. Other creepy people, men, go up there, and they were the party favorites for them. So that was the whole memory of the whole thing, and it happened many times within that area. In fact, I went from Bremerton. Hope all my padding and stuff isn't coming through this microphone. I talk with my hands, sorry. So I was in Bremerton to begin with, and then I went up into parts of Canada, Victoria Island, a lot of stuff up there. I remember I just remember a few times being on, on planes, that too, but I remember being on ferries and things like that. So I know most of the time was spent there in Seattle, but then some of it was spent other places, but I don't, someplace in Canada. I have to go to Canada and check it out and see if I can get the memories.
Have you visited Seattle and recognized where it was?
Well, terrified to go back.
Okay.
Not really, but I feel uneasy to go back there. And no call to go back there, but I really need to take it. the journey back there so I can find out.
Yeah, because Tony Rodriguez was surprised by how he was able to just walk to the place where his experiences had happened, and they sound very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, we talked about that, and we realized that we were probably at, because he's younger than I am, of course. We realized that we were probably at the same big party, because I was explaining about a party that was outside. His was outside. The girls were over here. The young boys were over here. We never were ever able to mingle except for in transport. Um, and then there was a big outdoor party in the middle, and we realized that we were both there, and maybe even at the same Seattle place. Don't know for sure, but in that area.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was in Seattle too. So we kind of came together with some few things and memories there. So anyway, so let's go back to the bus. So I'm on the bus and I'm
Okay.
going on home, and I get home. I call my parents. My by this time now, my father is in his 50s, no 40s. No, he's old. I don't know what he was, 30s or so. Yeah, if I'm 20, he had to have been 40s. Yeah, so he was probably 45 or something like that. And I think he may have done some healing because he was a different person after that. Well, sometimes he wasn't. Sometimes his altar was. But at this particular time, when they came to pick me up, his altar, he was his front altar instead of somebody else. And when my mother saw me, she said, "For the love of God, where have you been? We haven't seen you since the wedding." And I went, "The wedding?" They said, "Yes, your wedding that we came down to go to." And I said, "I don't remember a wedding." And they proceeded to tell me about this wedding. And but first of all, it was January, like 7th or something like that at this college. And then late January, about January 17th, I contacted them, or just a little before that, January 15th or something. I contacted them and I said, "I'm going to get married, and so I want you to put an announcement in the paper. I'm marrying a Navy Marine corpsman." And that was it. That was basically all I said. And they tried to talk to me, and I wouldn't have anything to do with it. Well, I don't remember that conversation, of course. That was my other altar. And I they tell me that about a week or two later, they get an announcement in the mail that says they're invited to the wedding. So they go to the wedding, and they said I wasn't even myself. They said, "We thought you were like under drugs or well, they didn't say mind control, drugs or something. He was controlling your mind," is what they said. And they said that my father said, "I'm not going to walk you down the aisle." And I said, "I don't care. I'll let my friends walk me down the aisle. They're the ones that gave me my wedding dress." And I was a real bitch, I guess, and so they said, I guess, by even though they signed my because I wasn't 18 yet, but they signed it. I don't know why they did. Maybe they had some other reason. I don't know why, but they had to sign because I turned 18 in March. So, um, so anyway, I had my wedding, and I also had a reception, and I remember none of these. During a hypnosis some years later, somebody was asking me, "How come you don't remember your wedding?" And I says, "I don't remember. I don't know. I don't." And she said, "No, you really need to remember now. She's got me in hypnosis, and she said, it's a very important time. Why don't you remember your wedding?" And that was actually Nora Isley. And
Okay.
I said, yeah. And so I came out of it. I didn't come out of it. Another person came out of it and said, she looked at me. Maybe it wasn't. She was on the second one. It might have been another person. But anyway, the therapist said, "Why don't you remember?" And she says, "You looked at me and you looked like a really smirky grin on your face." And said, "Because it wasn't her wedding, it was mine. And she's asleep like she's supposed to be." And so she went on with this conversation with this altar, and she found out the altars. She asked her, "When were you born?" She said, "I was born in 1952." And that would have made her 3 years old, which is when my start my programming and the torture started.
Hmm.
And she said, well, what's your name? She says, I'm Darlene. And she says, so what do you do, Darlene? And she says, I'm the one that saves her. I'm saving them all. Because if it wasn't for me, she'd be dead. She couldn't handle it. She's she's too weak. I'm the one that does all the hard stuff. I'm the one. And so I integrated that one later on. Not that particular time, but later on. And then I've integrated a couple more that I um and I do believe I don't switch in and out. I don't think you might find me. Maybe you know because you know it. Maybe you find that I do switch. I might, especially when I'm talking about this. I sometimes don't feel like myself always, so I may switch in and out altars. But pretty much, I think I've integrated all the altars. Um,
I haven't noticed you switching like I have some of the others. Um,
yeah, hard.
Herr Mayor switches between his normal self and that German officer so fast that it's like plump. And there's another woman out there that claims she doesn't have alters, but she switches into a sex kitten. And
Mm.
then there's me. I do 6, 7 alters a show. I have to watch the show after to know what I said.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, that happens. It happens a lot, and I'm going. God, I don't remember saying that. So maybe so. There's might still be a little bit going on. So yeah. So I tried to get on with my life, and then a year later, I ended up. This would have been in 1967. The first one went. I went home in 1968, and then in 1969, I was trying to get on with my life. I get a call from what I think is just a phone call. I answer it. The last thing I remember is hearing a fax machine. Sounded like what a fax machine is now. They didn't have fax machines back then, but a fax machine, and that was in 1960, late 68, maybe even early 69. I'm not sure about that. And I was gone again. This time they took me to San Francisco. So I don't. This time I did have a baby. I know that. This time I remember the experience where I was in a shack of a place with a lot of other girls, young women my age, and I was brought in a baby. And I'm telling you, I was a very naive person. I don't know anything about anything. And this man showed me how to nurse. And then that was the end of it. That's all I remembered. I don't remember anything else. And to me, nursing seems so different. And it doesn't seem like horrific people who are going to steal your child would have you nurse them. This doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. So I haven't done a regression on it. That's just a conscious memory. I've got to probably go into that and find out why I have that
Well,
memory.
we can come back to that after a break.
Okay.
You've been going pretty. Welcome back. Miesha was discussing her second time of having a long gap in her memory when we broke. Um, if you want to go back to that.
Okay. Um, so I hear this tone in my ear on the phone, and that's the last thing I remember. I do have a crazy memory of a couple of things during that didn't make sense, but in hypnosis I pieced it all together. I had I, where I was driving, and we were driving, and we picked up someone who were going to New York, and something about police and uniforms or something like that. It was just, I don't know. It was I think it was the program that was supposed to go on in my head that
Hmm.
supposedly I drove someplace, and I picked up hitchhikers, and the police picked us up, and then they were going to, um, the, oh, I can't think of what they call it. The big hippie thing. What's it called? Anyway, in New York, Woodstock.
Woodstock.
Yeah, yeah. Supposedly that there was something to do with Woodstock. I remember seeing
Lou was at
parts.
Woodstock, my partner. So,
Well, I remember like something memories of Woodstock, but I don't, so it's just flash. And again, I'd have to go right back into that to try to get more. But I did find out some information that is that um, the code that came across the phone was go to Bob's Big Boy. He will be there waiting for you. So Bob's Big Boy is a restaurant. So I
yeah.
went to, so evidently I met him at Bob's Big Boy and we drove out in my car so that no one would worry that I was, had been kidnapped. So I drove away in my car. And supposedly I told my employers, which was a family's actually, because we're in a family business, that I had quit and I was gone. And so that was it. That was all the thing they
Wow.
knew.
Wow.
The altar packed everything up or enough anyway, and I just left. And then I did find out from Peter the Insider. He did one of his, famous readings on you to see and look at your files and stuff. So I did find some strange things out from him that I just wasn't sure about because I couldn't remember, but it did put some pieces together and that I had been at MIT in New York. And he actually said, they owe you a lot of money because they did a lot of work with you and you brought a lot of information to them. I went,
Wow.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that. And then, of course, some other things he told me. But yeah, so that put that piece together. But I ended up in San Francisco. And so of course, I have memories of the Bohemian Grove and remembering that we were the entertainment for them after their ceremonies, that they would come to these chalets. I just remember they looked like chalets, and they're deeper inside of the. That's a very large area, by the way, and they've got a lot of facilities and such inside. So we would be there for them when they came after um, their ritual ceremonies, and so that I remember about that, and I remember other large kinds of parties and things like that. And I remember being taken to a woman's house when I first got there. I think I was taken to a woman's house and turned over to her, and she's the madam, and she was, I was a very naive 18, and
Mm.
so actually I was a virgin when I got married, shall we put it that way. If a virgin I was, but I wasn't because I had been um, tampered with when I was a child. But that was my first consensual intercourse. If
Yeah.
indeed that even happened, then I don't even know. But I was a virgin until then. I could have been a virgin at 18. I'm not sure. So anyway,
Yeah.
well, I know I was. I know I was, but I didn't consider myself a virgin because I found out that I was married. So I don't know. I know I was. But at any rate, I know it doesn't make any sense to me either. That's why I hate I hate to be on radio shows because nothing makes sense at
It's
all. I know. I'm
okay.
crazy.
You're doing fine, Misha. um,
That the facilitator is such a poor communicator. I am. I know that about my own experience because um, I get into it and I start getting very emotional and stuff and such
uh,
again, fast and things like that. But
yeah,
yeah,
I've been given
I,
so much feedback about interfering too much, and you were on such a roll that I've been just letting you talk. Um,
well, I
so,
love questions. I love questions too. Just so you know, I love questions, and I'll get to this one, and then I think that we'll be able to do a lot more. Just a conversation. I really prefer those kinds of interviews than me just rattling off this horrific, crazy experience that I've had. Um,
yeah, I prefer the ones that are more conversational, but I had the feeling that you really needed to talk about this part, because I'd heard you talk about everything around it.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I don't really talk about this too much. So, but there's really not much left that I have any memories of other than the Human Grove. I went back to San Francisco specifically to see what I could find out, and I drove Joanne Richards right to Bohemian Grove, not Bohemian Grove,
The park where it's held.
no, not the Bohemian Grove. I drove her to the Bohemian building.
Mm.
The Bohemian building. I said, "There's something around here. I really think I need to see or something. Could we drive this way and turn this way, this way?" And she turned and I said, "That's it up there. It's the Bohemian place." So I know I spent some time
where the club
there.
is.
Yes, it's the Bohemian Club. Yeah, so I had memories of that, and then I had memories of the dock and things like that. Not a tremendous amount. I do have a memory of this one doesn't make sense now. This one doesn't make sense. I'll tell you this one. When I was in this first missing period of time, I had an injury, and the injury was to the bottom of my foot, and I said, what the memory that goes along with it is that Charlie and I were on the beach and I stepped on a piece of glass. But I've come to find out that this was either, and it felt like San Francisco and felt like the pier, but there was something, he had to test me for something. We were about to get on to a boat, and he had to test me for some reason or other, and he told me, take off my shoe and step down on this screw thing. He said, step hard, step hard, step hard. And, and I did. So I think he was testing me because he thought I was, coming out of the altar and stuff. So that's another thing that's there, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I do know that according to my sister, who knew me before the wedding, because she lived in Pocatello, and I had babysitted for her, she told me some horrific things. She said that she had come home one night and I was babysitting, which none of this I remember, and I was babysitting with Charlie, and that I don't remember either. And she said, and you met me at the door and said, Charlie has summoned some wonderful, and she didn't remember, demons or something like that. I don't know what exactly I said. And she walked in and she said there were candles all around. And she said, with my children, I couldn't believe that she had done that. And she kicked me out. And she was the one that told me that that she hated Charlie and told him to stay away from me. And she's the one that also knew during that time babysitting that I had a cast on. So it was during that time. So it's kind of crazy stuff, but that's how it goes. So the next thing I remember, back, I'm in San Francisco. I'll go back to that part of the story there a year later. And I wake up, because I don't remember the other stuff, just little tiny pieces. And I wake up, answer the door, and it's my brother. It's my brother, the one, that 13-year-old that ran away from home and knew all of this stuff. He knew what it was all about. In fact, he also was involved in it. He was in the Looking Glass program. And so he came and he said, we have been looking for you high and low. We have, and he said, we had a detective and we found you. Now, what has been going on? I had no idea. That's all I remember. So anyway, and through that period of time, my hair went from dark brown to white. White started coming in everywhere. White started coming. So I don't know. And that was the other strange memory. So I decided I'd just let it go and be white. So yeah, so the rest of it is my lab experiences. So we don't get into that, but that comes in with the ET. But I will tell you, throughout my entire life, I had ET contacts that were positive going on alongside of this horrific MK Ultra stuff. And I had some that were not so positive, you know. So you can ask me some questions now. We'll chat.
Um,
Get me off the hot seat.
my turn. Oh, goody. um, well, you sent me the photo of the cover of your book as part of the advert for this, and it will be on my YouTube version of this interview.
Can I show them it?
Sure, you can show it. And
It
they weren't butterflies, a monarch survivor's story. Um, Having had some interaction with the Monarch Program, no, the butterflies, some of us were fed butterflies while they were raping us as children. And I was told by an agent that when you're sodomizing a child, that the pelvis bones form the shape of the butterfly, and that was when what they modeled the program on. So
makes sense. I called it. My father would hypnotize me before he'd take me to grandma's and things like that, and I'd see butterflies. That's why I call it. They weren't butterflies. With him being in the program, he was programming me ahead of time about the butterfly thing.
Yeah, they gave us a lot of what I call cover memories, and that would be like you seeing the butterflies. Things when you remember them, a lot of the memories that don't make sense are cover memories. And in mine, every Friday, literally for decades, plural, I would dream that I was a mermaid in a kelp bed. And that was my cover memory for being abducted. So I found when I do the memory search that when a memory comes up, I have to actively, because I use self hypnosis for it, so I have to actively say, okay, what really happened? And then I will visualize the curtains opening, and then I get to see what really happened. So it's something that a lot of the people in our community are not doing. They're telling their cover memories. And then getting mad when I go, well, did you look any deeper? So that's one of the things. That's one of the things that I do when I'm doing one-on-one counseling is I get them to open the curtains and see what really happened, especially people who think that all of their ET interactions were positive. They really need to open the curtains because there are some good experiences, and I'll give you that. But from what I've been talking to people, it's maybe a third are good experiences and 2/3 are not. So, and it depends on which species is interacting with you. I've had personally better experiences with reptilians than I have with species that look human. The less human they are, the more positive my interactions have been. And this is after opening the curtains. So.
Interesting. Well, yeah, my, I have a, shall we say, reptilian counterpart that is a very benevolent being, and he came into my life to stop my lab experiences, and he's a very positive being. He he's more on what you might call turtle and draconian looking. I mean, he has some, like with the turtles and stuff, the turtle species and stuff. He's Syrian, for instance, and I think that also has to do with it. But he has a velvet kind of skin, not coarse. And when I later on in my life and I had the draconian experience in the underground bases, they have very alligator kind of skin. They have coarse, where his was more like a velvet, velvet skin. So, and those are very positive with him. The ones in the picture I drew, but had drawn on my cover is part of the, I'd say, reptoid type of races. You know, we all have different names for them. Some people call them different things like that, but I think that mine was saurian more than this, and this ones are more the reptoid, reptilian, and draconian. So I don't, in my book, I do have a picture of a draconian as well. This one was an out and out, to me, felt like a draconian. Other than his color, he looked a whole lot like the Jupiter Ascending.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, they got it right. They got it right.
Yeah, every ET in that movie is dead on.
Dead on. Yeah.
Even the way they move, they got it dead on. I mean, for a movie that the plot sucked so badly.
Comparison to the corporation running out there, running the secret space program and the corporation, don't you think that they was trying to show that without showing that?
The characters the characters involved were all correct. Okay, it was just the way they went about it. You know, yes, she was very naive and got taken advantage of, but at the same time, she was handed control of a planet.
Oh, yeah, that part was kind of...
the plot was stupid, but everything else about the movie was right on point. And the corporations that run everything, I mean, this was from an ET perspective. It was not from the humans in space perspective.
Yeah.
The humans in space are separated, and when we interact with ETs, usually we are servants or being taken advantage of. And so that colors my views of ETs, is because I've seen how easily humans are taken advantage of out there. Especially the groups that are completely human. Most of the Germans are completely human. Most of the Americans are completely human. It's the monarchs in space and the SS in Nacht Waffen who are shot up with black goo. And so their IQs are brought up. So they're on a par with the ETs. And they're not taken advantage of as easily. But the ones that are completely human, they're just being used all the time. And so seeing that has made me not trust them, because I see how they take advantage of the people out there, and then I see all these naive people inviting in anybody and everybody, and I'm going, yeah, no, most of the guys out there you really don't want to interact with. And it makes me grateful for the group that's being known as Earth Defense Force, because they're not letting anybody in unless they're on the list.
In the list.
There's a list of 120 races that are allowed access to Earth, and nobody else is. So when people are doing CE5, they can only get somebody that's on the approved list. Now, not everybody on there are nice people, but they've at least got permission to be here.
Yeah, they're more on the curious range of it. They were just curiosity to them, and yeah.
Yeah. So that's reassuring to me personally, knowing that group is out there. But
well, I should have asked you this question when I had you on my radio show. I want to know more about the Monarch up there, because Peter, the insider, told me that I was part of Monarch and to go look into Monarch Solutions and all of this stuff. And he said I was shot up with black goo and all this, and different things like that.
Yeah.
And some of it, what he said, I could definitely see and prove. But I thought the Monarch program was really basically, a beta sex program. And also a courier. I also was a courier, and also was, I would set people up to be hit and things like that. There were,
Yeah.
But
that's what it is on Earth. Okay. That's what it is on Earth. Okay. Mm-hmm. Monarch and Kruger are competing mercenary companies in space. And Monarch started off as sex slaves, couriers, secret agents, that kind of thing. And when they went into space, they started with that and expanded into military. And they contract usually with the people that the Kruger people are fighting. So the assets from the two groups have usually got programming to not like each other, which is why the alliance between Max Spears and James Rink and Casbolt fell apart, was because of their programming from their Monarch and Kruger altars. So they were going to expose the pedophilia and the fact that it was children being kidnapped. So I'm kind of continuing their work, because coming from the SSP rather than one of those two groups, yeah, we're all kidnapped and we're all slaves out there, and we all go through the sex kitten phase. And when we get out there, our different altars are sold to different factions. I have one that she did her 20 back on Mars as a prostitute in the it's this from the perspective of the people that are the customers. It's like this paradise center in the middle of nowhere, and they come in and every vice known to humanity here or there is available, and records are kept, and those people are blackmailed over it. So everything having to do with Monarch, the customers are blackmailed over. So we are part of a criminal enterprise. And we were kidnapped as children, or like in your case, your father was involved with this. So these are criminal enterprises that we were not part of by our free will. And so anyone who's trying to make us feel guilty about it, sorry, you can go fuck yourself. We didn't sign up for this. And I'm not going to feel guilty, and I'm not going to make anybody else feel guilty over it. So when you get out into these programs, okay, Monarch shoots their people up with black goo so that their IQ is at the same level as the ETs, so they're not taken advantage of as easily. Kruger's solution is to install hardware. So by the time they get done with an asset, you look like a Borg.
Right.
And I do have altars that have been sold to Kruger, and one of them that was sold to Kruger is actually a cyborg. They crossed the line from enhanced human to cyborg. And when you're a partial brain inside a robot, that robot is designed for 600 years. You're not doing a 20 and back, you're doing a 600 and back. And this is what these two companies are doing, and these are the super soldier companies. So that's the difference between super soldier and SSP, is who you are owned by out there. Super soldiers are Kruger and Monarch. SSP are the Germans, Solar Warden, ICC, Planetary Corporations, Alliance. My faction in space calls them bankers in space. It's the military-industrial complex's very own space faction. So they are the largest American-based program out there. And
they also have slaves.
They what?
They also have slaves.
They also have slaves, and they are who are kidnapping all of the missing people on Earth and converting them into cyborgs for sale to ETs. My personal opinion, based on that information, they're the worst thing out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, but their assets who are coming back here and remembering being part of it, they are no more guilty than Monarch people are. You're kidnapped as a child. You're taken against your will. You're put through torture. Yes, you end up with Stockholm syndrome, where that you have to do what your captors want. Your survival depends on it. So how can those kids, later adults, be held responsible for their actions? I mean, when you remember
it's altars, and the altars don't even remember. I mean, you don't even remember.
Well, I've been reintegrating altars, so like you did, and I haven't made as much progress as you have. But when I start reintegrating them and remember what they did out there, it's like so horrific.
Yeah.
The horror factor is beyond belief. And so I really admire that you were willing to talk about this today.
Thank you.
So I have the utmost respect for you about this. This is not easy for those of you out there who think it is. We're talking about things that were done to us, not that we were willing participants in. And we are still damaged because of what was done to us. So,
and we deserve reparation, but will we ever get it? No, but we should. It's just like when Peter told me, he said, you should be getting a lot of money from MIT. I went, for what? Because I certainly don't think, I think that was one of the altars, the intelligent altars that has gone now, has integrated. I certainly don't feel that MIT worthy of intelligent myself, So I don't understand how that works out. When you say they shoot us up with goo and we become as intelligent as the aliens, but when we are back here, it's different.
When we're back here, they've taken the black goo out.
Is that it? I didn't know they could take black goo out. Oh.
They can take it out. The regen tanks that the Germans use before they send us back, the black goo sinks to the bottom.
Oh, I do remember the tanks. Absolutely, 100%. I definitely remember the tanks. Yeah. The tank. The first time I remember a tank was when I was young then in this tank. Now this might have been a different kind of tank, but what they wanted me to do is sink down to the bottom. They were communicating with me telepathically. So I guess they wanted to see how much they were testing me on the telepathic abilities within the liquid and being able to breathe that liquid, that whatever that liquid was, you know.
Oh yeah, so you had to breathe the stuff. That's what you ate, drank, breathed, everything while you're in it. It was your existence. And it was the same temperature as you are, so you couldn't even feel it. I would wake up in tanks and wonder, did they let me stay dead this time?
Oh,
you know, so yeah, I have come to the conclusion if I wake up, it means that they didn't let me die.
Well, I think I was probably strictly in the Monarch program for whatever for their duration, other than the time I was in the instructor facility kind of thing, because I don't remember fighting anything really, other than that childhood thing. And I think that was, they just needed some bodies out there to make it look like they had more soldiers. I don't know, but
that could be.
I don't remember nothing even coming. Regressions about being a soldier.
I think your feeling that you were being used as bait was probably right on.
Yeah.
So I know they have done that with slaves, used them as bait. So it wouldn't surprise me that children trainees would be used as that. But yeah. Knowing that there is a Monarch program in space and that it's a mercenary company, your memories of sometimes being here and sometimes being there make perfect sense. It's just not knowing that it's both places is what makes it not.
So then you think, is there a possibility that those 8 months missing periods where I was actually missing in action completely from my family and stuff could have been times where I was up in space, you think?
It's possible. Although if you had a child, it probably isn't. Because out there, okay, I've got people that are coming forward now that talk about that they had children while they were out there, but I remember when they found out I was pregnant, they dumped me into regen to erase the babies.
Oh, so they don't want there.
You know, I don't know if it was because of my modifications or if it was standard policy. So my personal memories are very different than what I'm hearing from some of the younger women. So.
Oh, okay. And also it depends on which program or whatever you want to call it.
Which faction you're in.
Faction you're in. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm still, because the amount of memories that I have from those 8 month period times, and why 8 months, I don't know why specifically 8 months, but that's how it was in both cases. Is that it's just like maybe if you put it all together, maybe 24 hours. So that's a time to be missing the rest of it. Not knowing. So I've been always. But I've never gone into regression to specifically find that out. Well, I did. However, I was blocked at that time. it's been a long time.
I've had
Yeah, well,
three things that would be called regressions, and the first one was trying to make sense of the big pile of memories that was in German. The second one was to help James Rink get art of himself as a super soldier, and I was blocked. Um, I had to deal with Omega programming after that. And the third one was to undo some of the effects of a ET abduction. And it was an actual ET abduction. The group that most people call Anunnaki.
oh, right.
So they didn't like me. That's the short version.
So, I mean, I would like to go into a few other things that have come up in my experience that with the draconians, I always say, or reptoids or whatever, that I have been in Seattle, also in definitely in Bohemia, I think there, but in different places I've had experiences and memories of during these rituals of seeing reptilians or reptoids. I mean, I'm going to call them draconians because I'm going to do that. All right. So in this specific experience that I remember that I I'm psychic, I think I've been in the psionic field and such and done a lot with that. But I was one of the people standing to be either sacrificed or whatever it was. So I was in a white, um, like a gown thing. The other
Mhm.
people were in the hoods, the black hoods. We had a altar there in front, and um, I would watch, and I would watch, and I'll explain the rest of it why I didn't get taken. But anyway, I would watch these younger kids. I was probably 18 then, and I was watching younger kids. Girls was all it was girls 3 times, and I would watch them be killed. Um, and then I would watch these draconians standing at the very end of the altar, and they were like sucking up their last essence. I could see, I knew that's what they were doing. They were sucking up their loosh up into their body, kind of thing. And I saw this happen over and over and over again. And I figured, well, this is me. I'm done for. And this was a man, and he said, it was a good thing you performed good today, or you'd been one of them. So I always,
Wow.
remember that experience. And then another time with children, I saw the same thing, same kind of an energy coming from the dead, dying children and screaming children to those draconians. So they played a large part in the rituals. One particular time I was at a ritual where there was a man in a uniform, and there was a draconian next to him. Now, this was a larger than usual draconian. He was much larger than usual. And he was very dark skinned, one, too. And they were standing up on this ledge and they were watching the ceremony and such. Um, so there were some very weird things. And then I had another one that happened while I was in California during a ritual once. Now, this was after Ayano came into my life and
Mhm.
started protecting me, shall we say? Okay. Well, I was standing there in a ritual, and I was on the line with the dead people to be dead, to be sacrificed, and I got this reptilian comes up, and he's makes some kind of a gesture to the other one. They growl in, they do a little bit of this noise and that noise. And then he takes me by the arm and he walks away with me. And we're in a cave. It's definitely a cave. There's nothing like a building, anything about this. It was the
Okay.
same place. I don't know if it wasn't the same place where their ledge was. No, it wasn't. It was just the solid area of a cave. And as we walked away and we got further away, he telepathically said, "It's Ayano and we must hurry." And so
You were
we're
being
running.
rescued.
He has been rescued. That's why I really think a lot of him. And we were running, and all of a sudden, this rock wall turns into nothing, and next thing I remember, we're in the ship. So he rescued me. So he looks enough like them and can talk their language. He's a spy, actually. He's a spy. He's a spy. I know he is because and part of the things with the MyLab experiences, I became a spy, actually. Uh, uh, I, I have such good memories about this. I don't think this is my altar, but it's possible it is an altar. But that I would go into some really dark areas of these deep underground bases, and I would gather information for a positive group of ETs. That some of them were, in fact, reptilians like Ayano. And there was one particular time I was taken, and I was being because in the MyLab situation, they aren't pleasant either. In my opinion, the MyLab situation is in levels, and you get into one of the darker, deeper levels with the draconians involved, and they don't care what they do. They'll torture, they'll drug you and stuff. In this particular situation, he drugged me, and I mean, they drugged me, and then this draconian, or this wasn't really a draconian like the other dragons. This is more like a reptoid. He came in and he looked in my eyes, and so he did this kind of a mind melt. Well, what the questions they were talking to me about is, where is the base? Where's their base? You know where it is. Tell us where their base is. You're going to tell us where the base is. It doesn't matter what you think you're going to do. You're going to tell us. And so he comes and, oh, I'm sorry, I left a very important part out. They gave me some kind of a thick liquid they forced down to drink that. Not a shot, but a liquid. And then he came in and he did this mind melt thing with me. And I could see as they asked me the questions, a human, the lieutenant colonel, asked me the questions, I could see these forming up in my head, the answer, and then it was like sucked out. I mean, the only way I could explain it was like sucked out. And I'd get that thought of it when he'd answer, and I'd try to hold it off, and it gets sucked out. So I thought, oh no, I'm telling him where he's at. But then I get my implant now talks to me and says, and it's Ayano, and he says, don't worry, you're not going to give us away. You do not have to worry, you won't give us away. So it's some strange stuff. I was like a spy and stuff, and I know we're about out of time here.
Yeah, but, we're getting close to the end here. The next show is Ramona Speaks the Other Truth, and if you want to give your shameless plugs, we can take time for that.
Oh, okay. Okay, my shameless plugs. All right. Well, my groups are the most important thing, and my mission was given to me in 1990 by the ETs that I needed to start a support group. Back then, there was nothing like this. So I started the support group, and then I had the children's group, or the teens group I started, and then I started the first children's group in actually, I understand it was the world, according to whatever her name is. Another lady, Australian lady. You know where she's around, I can't think of her name right now. By the way, that's part of my programming, is not to remember names. And that's part of a lot of my
I have trouble with that too.
They're horrifically hard for me. So to have these groups are so important because it helps people come out of their isolation and share and find out. So that's why I've been doing these groups. That's why I do 3 a week, and they can find them on starseedawakening.org, or they can go to my website, and they can go on my website to find all of my my books and my my cards that I do with my readings and such like that I develop. And I think that's it. And my radio show, and you already told them about that. That's every Saturday, just for her show.
Yeah, it starts 2 hours before my show.